Good evening. We are on our second episode of Stay Single with Shri, an important conversation series that was born out of the community that I very proudly founded, and I'm a member of myself. I prefer to call myself a member, a crusader, and not bask in the glory of being a founder. Founders have to struggle way harder, as we'll discover in our chat this evening. One of the things that came up with the pandemic and the COVID was the financial difficulties that single women in our community were facing. Last week, as I know, many of you joined in, and we spoke to resilient single mothers, some self employed, some freelance, some in top jobs in corporations who had borne the brunt of the COVID induced global recession. This week, I thought I'm going to flip the tables and we are going to meet business leaders, not just women who founded companies, but women who are trailblazers in their particular domains. As a curator of this show, it was very important for me to pick right. And I hope you will agree with me that I have done what I could do to bring together this kick ass, stellar panel of women who also all happen to be proud single mothers. As I told you last week, it gives me so much of joy to say that, especially because I was raised by a very, very brave and a firebrand single mother. So, saluting all you women. I'm going to cut straight to the topic that we are discussing tonight. It's a stormy evening in Kolkata, and I think a storm will brew even on this conversation that we have planned. Um, we are discussing how this COVID has impacted business leaders. You know, these are women who not just are trailblazers in their particular domains of travel, online and finance, education, and medical science and the hospital industry, but these are women who also employ hundreds of people. These are also women who have set up organizations. So they have rentals, they have leases, they have loans. These are women who have also taken themselves because they are heads of their own organizations. And these are also women who have had to dig deep into their own personal stories of survival, of managing their finances, of their own past experiences of being careful with saving, or maybe learning a lesson that they have to now to bring to their own business tables. I'm going to cut straight across to a wonderful woman, a woman who inspires me, a fellow Bangali, if I may proudly claim, from Kolkata, Dr. Shomdatta Singh. Shom, I'm going to call you Shom, like all Bengalis have a little duck name, so Shom it shall be for our audiences. Shom is a woman who calls herself a serial entrepreneur. And I just love the sound of that. So, when the whole country is reeling from a shortage of N95 masks, PPE kits, with reports flooding the media of defective kits coming in from China, healthcare workers going into the front lines with faulty, their kits and their uniforms, you have actually risen to the occasion. And you have actually, converted your business model into something which has a social, cause at the back of it. You want to supply PPE kits to hospitals. You're willing to give those big discounts. You're not looking at making profits. But at the same time, you've even adapted to adversity, which I think is the mark of a true business leader. I welcome you to the second episode of Status Single with Shri. And my first question to you is, you've had a very checkered life, where you literally went away from your home at a very young age, and your journey of entrepreneurship was born out of that kira in your brain to
Yeah,
do many things at once.
yeah.
So over to you, Shom.
সবাইকে নমস্কার, namaste to everybody, and Shri and the eminent panelist that you have put together today. I think you rightly call it the boss girls because honestly, at the whole idea of a boss, and I think the definition of leadership comes how do you rise to an occasion. Shri,
Absolutely.
my life has always been about adversity to opportunity. Just to let you know, I was born, when I was born and I was handed over to my mother, the nurse actually said, madam, a very beautiful daughter, but don't know how long she's going to survive. And my mom, being a doctor herself, said, well, she will not only survive, but she will thrive. And that became the mantra of my life. And I'll tell you why. I was born with a tumor at the back of my spine, which was directly impacting my amygdala. And therefore, a surgery would mean losing motor functions for the rest of my life and even death. My mom took that risk, and I till date tell her that it's the risk that you took is why I am the way I am. So I decided, of course, I was always a rebel, right? And I think I learned it from her womb. She was a rebel. She was the first woman to become a doctor in her family, which, was a very, very illustrious Jomidar Bengali family, that like the way they call Bengal. She decided to step out and do something absolutely amazing. And it was not easy. It was absolutely not easy, especially because it's a male dominated bastion. At that time, 40 years back, becoming a doctor wasn't easy. But when I said I didn't want to become a doctor and I wanted to be an entrepreneur, the journey was very unique. I would go to Calcutta Club with my father all the time. And I would see some of the most eminent industrialists coming in some of the most illustrious cars. And we used to come in a white Ambassador, that time a luxury by in itself. I had an eye for the Mercedes Benz, and I liked seeing those big cars. And I said to my dad, why don't we sit in one of those? To that, my dad grinningly smiled and said, doctors can't afford it. I said, then I don't want to be a doctor. I not only want to afford it, but I want to live my life on my own terms. And thus I left home to come to Bangalore. And my journey of entrepreneurship started only when I was 16, where I was making chocolates at my dormitory, selling it at my college just to survive, because I was not getting supported by my family. A part of me realized then the importance of money, the importance of time, the importance of execution. Because most people have great ideas, Shri, but they fall flat when it comes to execution. And the reason they fall flat is because they don't think ahead of the curve. And that is where the problem starts. So when I finished schooling in US, came back to India, I knew that I want to come back here and start my own venture. I did work for companies, but that never excited me. I knew I wanted to be on my own, do something on my own. And the 16-year-old in me was still thriving, active, wanting to do something. Built my first company, scaled it, got funded, went on to my second one, and they were all diverse. Started an ad technology company, then started a completely different company, which is totally into e-commerce. I started a crowdsourced fashion label called Ira, which in its very first year won multiple awards, including the Economic Times Digital Leadership Award, because we were crowdsourcing designs from different parts of India through women, through youngsters who are not really designed, they don't have a qualification from an NIFT or NIFD. They're artists. And we wanted to take those artists and give them wings. So we tied up with manufacturers who would do manufacturing for us. We were crowdsourcing designs and we were doing fulfillment. And while I saw soaring success, I also saw a lot of difficulties. So the life of an entrepreneur is always seeing and taking an adversity and transforming it into an opportunity. And that's what my life has always been about. From one company, getting it acquired, to the next one, and having a fashion label. While my education is completely different than that. It's in management and economics. The diversity, the thought process, and the biggest important thing in my life has been hiring people who are better than me. I know what I'm not good at, Shri. I always am looking out for people who know the subject matter better than me and how I can stitch that together and monetize. So that's pretty much has been my journey. Shri, can you hear me?
Yeah. So I think it's important for you to throw light for our listeners and our viewers on how once, you had this very thriving fashion store at Phoenix, which is a very well-known retail outlet in Bangalore, which is a city you have one foot in, and how, like they say, you had, which I think is the mark of a true business leader, and also a woman business leader, if I may specify, because I think women operate instincts, which is a God-given gift, and you shut that down. You would all your stuff online, you sold it off so that you didn't have to pay rentals.
Yeah.
Can you just talk about that, and then I bring in Rin into the conversation?
You know, Shri, you said this very beautifully, and I always say this, right? It's not women who need empowerment, it's men who do. Because we're born with the two X chromosomes that automatically makes us extremely smart and intuitive, is why we have the power to give life to something in a physical form. So when you, and it's funny that when today women are confined to kitchens, and we talk about that's where their role is. The best chefs of the world are men, and the best economists of the world are the women. You know, the top banking sectors are driven by women. So I just brought in that light because we talked about intuition. So intuition is very key. In the very first year that I built Aira, Shri, it started doing very well. We had a high street store in Koramangala, which is a very, 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 very eminent, affluent locality in Bangalore. And within 6 months, we broke even. We started our online store, and about 60% of the revenue was coming from online, 40% was coming from offline. And that's where I understood the potential that you had online was so much bigger. And that's what went on to build my other brands, which I'll talk about more. But Shri, like any entrepreneur, because we want to take risk, we sometimes step over the boundary. So what happened was, because we started doing so well, we became so profitable, I wanted to quickly grow. And I forgot that this growth may need a lot more thinking, a lot more validating. So when Phoenix came forward to us and said that, hey, we saw you online, we saw you winning awards, we'll give you a store at a better, at a lesser rental, why don't you set it up? I jumped at it without thinking that a lot of times, especially for a young brand, which is less than 2 years old, you need to look at numbers and sales and not try to do positioning and marketing in a mall where most people go to eat, not shop, and most people just are window shopping for products which is less than 500, 600 rupees. Our products were all over 2000 plus, and that's why it was not a place where we could make the money back. So when we started the store there, within 4 months, we realized what a big mistake it was. And while I spent over 5 crore rupees setting it up, I lost all of that because I got into a license contract with Phoenix, which said, you have to be there for 5 years. We will support you. But the truth is they didn't support us at all. And all the listeners here, I'm going to tell you, sometimes the pudding looks so good that you want to get at it, but it is really not the best for you. So it's sometimes very, very important to know how much you can bite and how much you can chew. So we made that mistake, and we had to shut down the store, take that loss, and quickly move on. But the way I was able to compensate for the loss was because of the savings. And Mrin is here today, and she is an investment expert. I got into investment very early on in my life because I realized the power of saving, how important it is to have a backup plan. And this whole idea of having a backup plan allowed me to mitigate my losses very quickly, and also ensure that my personal commitments that I have towards my family and my daughter, who I got into my life at a young age of 23, doesn't get compromised. So I never allowed my professional aspirations to come in the way of my personal responsibilities. I kept those two very separate.
Rin, Shoms actually introduced you so beautifully that I won't take up that space anymore. You're definitely, a face that we are familiar with in our newspapers like Mint, where your columns, give us so much of enlightenment. And I think your passion and your commitment towards educating women in finance, which is, again, I'm saying this, though I'm in the presence of eminent company founders who are much, much, higher than me. I look at myself as an independent artist, but still I'm going to say it, I'm going to put it out on the table that women and personal finance is still a gray area. So my question to you, Mrin, because we have to contextualize it with our speakers, is the importance of personal saving. Entrepreneurship is a very exciting apple to bite into by many Eves today, right? But what is the price of that? And where should one draw the line, as Shom said, between personal and professional?
So first and foremost, Som, it's been so nice to hear your story and your life journey, and the fact that you're a serial entrepreneur, because not everybody can do that, and you've got your hands in different pies, so as to say. I think there were some really relevant points. What I want to talk about, her business journey and then her personal finance journey. So I think, the thing that she said, which I really liked, was that she basically hires people who know more than her. And, that's a great thing to do. But, as long as, of course, and I kind of presume from the way that she was talking that she also does learn from them as well. She also talked about risk, and how much ever you plan for risk, honestly, it can just hit you in the face. And I think that's what one is seeing today, that none of us thought. And I think just as we started this, I think a 2-week extension has been announced on the lockdown. So I think at the beginning of February, for example, all of us were looking at making plans for our summer vacations, and now we're all sitting here. So the risk can hit you at any point in time, and that is why it is so important to have a plan B always. And the plan B has to be one plan B in your business. But the thing that you need to remember always is that you cannot mix business with your personal finance, because at the end of the day, the business may face adversity. There could be market conditions due to which businesses may not be able to run, and you need to have your personal life still needs to run, right? So while you spend a lot of time on your business and your business finance, you need to give that amount of time for your personal finance, and you need to have a plan B in both the cases, right? So you have a plan B for your business, and you have a plan B on your personal finance. And I think that is so important, because your financial goals are going to continue, your expenses are going to continue, right, irrespective of the state of your business. So you need to have that segregation there. And just on the piece of personal finance, I would also like to say that you also need to be really involved in it, and you need to understand what you're getting into, considering that you take a lot of risk in business, right? You might want to de-risk your personal finances by being a little bit more conservative as far as personal finances are concerned.
Right. Mrin, one thing you said, which
Absolutely.
I'm so glad I met you in this avenue, because a lot of times, again, personal finance and investments is, again, a male dominated bastion. And there are women like you who's leading the foray. I'm so glad I know you now, because I know that I'm going to learn a lot from you, and we're going to engage better. We need to plan our personal finances better, not just you saying, hey, you have a risk of calamity, a natural disaster, any of that. Like, I have a home in Puerto Rico which had a Hurricane Maria, where everything was washed away. Your commitment towards the people in your life doesn't change. Businesses can change, because there are things, there are adversities, there are policies, there are government regulations that can impact your business, and then these kind of pandemics and calamities. But your commitment towards your people, your home, your loved ones don't change. And therefore, you have to know what kind of a lifestyle you want to lead and plan for it in advance. Like, I ensured that I secure my daughter's education, my future, my parents' health, my parents' future, even though they don't need me to finance them, but I'm their only child, and that's my responsibility. I started investing in properties early. I started de-risking between investments in commercial property versus personal property. And I think the other thing that I did is, when I hired an investment banker to work with me on my shares and on my portfolio of investment, I kept asking him questions, and I also told him what I like and don't like. Sometimes, the other person can be very high-handed, because they say, I know it all. I'm like, hey, hold on. You may know it all, but I have my preferences. So how do you marry the preferences with the know-it-all and manage those? So I would also like to know from you what your experiences have been with entrepreneurs like me, and maybe that will help me a lot too.
So we'll come back to that. For now, I'm going to go straight up to Shilpa Mehta, who is joining us from beautiful Goa. And I'm almost feeling envious, Shilpa, that there you are in your Goan villa, and here I am in good old Kolkata. But nonetheless, I hope we meet in safer times. Min, I love that word you use of plan B. I've always wanted to write a book called Plan B, because, I'm a woman who considers myself very much destiny's child. I adapt quickly to adversity. And I think my whole life has been Plan B, Met Shilpa in a beautiful garment store in Goa. I remember I had just had a blow dry. I, of course, had no hair then. Anything about my hair these days makes me very sad and sound like a tragedy queen. But I met Shilpa in her wispy, flowing, beautiful summer dress, and we became instant friends. Shilpa came to India. You know, her life always reminds me of Elizabeth Gilbert from Eat, Pray, Love. You'll have to hear this from me many more times, Shilpa. Um, she actually came to India with her young daughter, India Fire, after the dissolution of her marriage. It was an amicable separation, and I love the way Shilpa continues to co parent with her British husband. We must have a show on that, Shilpa. I think that's so important, especially in these times when so many women in India are getting divorced. Shilpa wore many hats. She's a former journalist like me, and I think has the gift of the gab and loves to work with people. And now, the reason why I wanted Shilpa on this show is Shilpa runs one of the biggest schools in Goa, which is well known for its curriculum, its innovative and very, very new age methods of teaching. And if I may proudly say so on my own show, it's helmed by the divine feminine, that is Shilpa. So, Shilpa, welcome to Status Single with Shri. You represent, a sector that is education, and all of us, all of you on the panel are single mothers, so I'm sure your little ones, Indranidhi's son of course is a doctor who's serving at the front lines. But I'm saying that all of you have been in a place. I have a sister who is 11, and the children are glued onto their laptops and their phones, thanks to technology and thanks to online classes. Even exams are being conducted online. I know because, I've been with you on this journey of setting up Paradise School, which is Cambridge affiliated. It's the only soul school. Explain that to us, what it means. But you've always believed, I know, have always believed that technology will have a great role to play in the future of education. How has that, your forward thinking, once again, your insight, your instincts as a woman and as a professional, kicked in at a time like this?
Mm. Well, thank you so much for the wonderful, warm welcome, Shri. I always feel great to be in your company, and it's wonderful to be here with all you ladies as well. Basically, in a nutshell, my background is journalism. I'm from the UK. I came to India, and my daughter needed a school. She's 16. She was about 9 or 10 then. And I just decided just to roll my sleeves. It was not in my destiny or my planning. It was not my plan A. It wasn't even my plan B, C, or D. It was my zero plan. I wasn't going to set up schools, but my daughter needed a school. So I was very driven by my maternal instincts to do the best for her, to give her a school that would genuinely empower her. Because I feel so much education is disempowering, and it's based on these models of rote learning and memorization, and if you don't do it properly, you get your knuckles wrapped. And there's a lot of shaming that happens in schools, and a lot of annihilation of their fundamental souls and personalities. And I didn't give birth in order for a schooling system to destroy my daughter. I mean, it was that fierce for me, Shri. I just said, no, I've got an opportunity. I'm in Goa. I can reinvent with, and that's what I'm going to do. So I did it twice. I set up a school in South Goa and then another one in North Goa, which is the one that I currently run. And because I approached it as a journalist and not as a person from an educational franchise or dynasty, I just said, right, what are the latest ideas about education? How can I move this forward in the most powerful way? Because I have the chance to start again from scratch. So what I did was I teamed up with one of the world's top global educators called Dr. Sugata Mitra. He is a TED Prize winner, and he's the creator of a method called Hole in the Wall. I don't know if you're familiar with it, but anyway, basically what it enables children to do is go on these incredible voyages of discovery. No teachers involved. Kids, the internet, a very big, messy, abstract question where there's no right or wrong answer. And kids just go on this journey, and they are self-organizing. It's called self-organized learning environments. So I just thought that this is the future. Kids have to learn by themselves. Kids have to collaborate. Kids have to use the internet. So I teamed up with Sugata. I teamed up with Sugata and basically combined his method with the mainstream Cambridge curriculum, so that we were doing something alternative, but also doing something mainstream at the same time. Somebody's microphone is really loud over there. Anyway, to continue. So, you know, the thing is, ladies, there is a term called VUCA that the American military have coined, which stands for Mitch, can we do something about that microphone? Shri, I can't hear you. Shri, I can't hear you. Okay, perfect. It's been done. So basically, there is a concept called VUCA, V-U-C-A, which is an American military term, which they have used to describe an unknowable future, right? It stands for volatile, unpredictable, complex, and ambiguous. This is to describe a world that we cannot even predict. Like, we don't even know what model of iPhone is going to come out next, let alone, you know, what's going to either come from the skies or the seas, or the person sitting next to you could have a bomb strapped to them. We just don't know. And look at us now. As a result of a virus, we're not even able to meet in the same room. So they have VUCA strategies. Businesses have VUCA strategies. Corporates have VUCA strategies. Education does not. And so what I decided was, I'm going to have a VUCA strategy, which means that we are a very dynamic culture. We're a very democratic culture. We collaborate in our school. My faculty is very young. We don't have dinosaurs, because I love change. I need change. The world needs change. And so because I didn't let go of the mainstream, and I kept these kind of more alternative ideas shaping the culture of our school, when COVID hit, of course, this is a profoundly uncomfortable situation for me and my school. I had to shift everybody online very quickly. For our secondary learners, it's easy because they're already inhabiting the Google universe, you know, multiple platforms on the internet. They're very comfortable with that. My primary learners are not so, because we don't use the internet so much with them, but we've suddenly had to shift them over, and parents, because we're now they have become co-teachers with us for the younger learners. And it's been an amazing process, because the thing I've really seen is that because we had the right culture in place, Shri, we were able to pivot on this hairpin bend and just go, okay, this is next. Because the thing I believe deeply, and that you made homage to it, you paid homage to it, that the divine feminine, you know, I think as a believer in the divine feminine, I like chaos. I think from chaos, great creativity comes. And my organization is not hierarchical, it's not patriarchal, it's led by a female who believes in these values. Therefore, power is not me, the powerful one at the top, raining power down on everyone else and controlling them. I share power. I share power with my heads of department. I share power with my kids. I share power with my whole organization. And so when situations like this hit, we're able to powerfully and together move on and create the next version of who we are, because we're so excited about who we are. We can create another version of ourselves. We're not scared of change. So really for me, this is, VUCA has been, it's been an opportunity. You know, we've taken the school online. Now I'm beginning to see that there's more opportunities. I hosted a call for the whole of my school, like we can see everybody's frames here. So we had 80 kids online with Sugata. We did a soul session. And then I said to my team, because we love this, right? So I said to my team, why don't we invite all Indian kids on lockdown? Because maybe this would be an amazing experiment. And so then we had 500 kids on a call, just like this, all doing an interactive classroom soul session together. So for me, I just feel like many opportunities are opening up, which is online learning, which means that school is not bound to the physical realm anymore. It's not about bricks and mortar. This is kind of becoming an old idea already. And school can be digital, and people from all over the world can join in a collaborative space such as this. So yeah, I mean, that's basically, in a nutshell, where I'm at. Shri, I can't hear you.
There you go. You can hear me now.
Yes.
So thank you, Shilpa. And like I say that, you know, women's instincts, our own experiences, our vision, you know, it's just amazing how I think this is such a hopeful session even for me to look at this time as an opportunity to build. Bryn, my question to you is about women in the education sector. I know for a fact that there are many women who run their families for an important avenue. It can be such a lucrative avenue for a woman to earn.
Srimoy, I'll have to request you to repeat that because you were frozen. You're on mute.
Education for women is to allow you to earn money, right, Bryn? And so many women actually make their homes
Marin, can you hear me?
I can hear you, Shilpa, but I can't hear Srimoy at all.
Yeah.
I think her thing is lagging a little bit.
Yeah.
She was talking about,
which I think
You want to just make some comments while we're waiting for Shri to get back? Marin?
yeah. I think she's talking about women in the education sector, the things that, really matter to them.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I mean, it's really good to see that you're following your passion and setting up something out of your passion. And of course, along the way, it has to make money for it to really survive. So, and it's great to see that you're also trying out a lot of new stuff and you're kind of prepared for all the volatility and the uncertainties. But I think, what the whole point is to really successfully try to convert this passion into a long-term sustainable business, which I think that you're already doing. And I think there's a lot of focus that you need to have on finances in that sense, because that's an integral part of any business, whether you like it or you don't like it. And so I think while there's a lot that you're doing in the education space, and I think it's a great area for a lot of women to be in. But before anybody really gets into it, I think because certainly you would be spending for those who are looking at setting up education in a more brick and mortar space. We know how the rentals work on all of these, and of course you need to be prepared to pay your salaries and stuff like that, right? So I think the only point that I want to say here is that it's great to be able to follow your passion, but you really need to keep a very good eye on the finances, because remember, it is a capital intensive business to be in. And
right.
So that's what I would kind of want to say at this point.
Can I
Right.
ask a question?
I'm going over to our next speaker, Akanksha Garg. I'll come back to all of you again. Also, my connection is really bad because we've had a severe thunderstorm in Calcutta. So do be patient if I go off, and my video might be off from time to time. Akanksha is a woman I met at a CII summit here in Kolkata, which was on single women, and again, single parents, to be more specific. As you know, or you may not know, and this is fantastic information for us as a community, there are over 30 million single parent families now, most of which are headed by mothers and women. And there has been a substantial increase in the number of households which are also run by the income of one woman, that is the mother. So Akanksha is going through a difficult separation, and she's been very resilient and very spunky through it all. Also a lesson for me, how does one be a business leader when one's own personal life is difficult and complex? And really, I think it's the emotional resilience of women which sees us through once again. Akanksha, you also, like Shom, started your entrepreneurial journey very quickly, very early. You know, at the age of 23, when you set up your first resort in Sundarbans, and your father, coming from a business family. I'm just fast forwarding the story a little bit so that you can cut to the chase. Your father initially had a problem with you getting into the hospitality sector, because for him it was like jharu pocha bartan, quote unquote, and
Correct.
pun intended, right? So,
Right.
yeah, so he had his reservations, but he gave you a certain amount of money, which was 2 lakhs, and he told you that this is all you're going to get from me. And invest it, do what you want, but this is it. You know, you can't come back and say that I've spent it up. And even like Shom, your lessons of saving, your lessons of starting early, right, as an entrepreneur, I think have held you in good stead. You wanted to discuss a couple of things which I think are extremely important, that is rentals and leases, especially for people in the hospitality travel sector. The footfalls falling, because obviously now travel is going to be the worst hit. I think airlines,
Yeah.
resorts like yours, it's really a bad scene. And also, the employer engagement at this time. How do you redesign your business strategy? Like Shom has so effectively risen to the occasion. Shilpa already had that vision and she's been able to integrate it beautifully. How has it been for you? So cut to the present, please.
Okay. Thank you so much for this wonderful introduction, Shri, and good evening, everyone. As you all heard that I've already been running a successful business for almost 15 to 17 years with Sundarban and expanding into other resorts. I've also headed the RTSOI, that's Responsible Tourism for India, and I advise the government of Madhya Pradesh for tourism development and also the CII National Tourism Committee. So what we've seen in our trend, at least the tourism industry and the hotel line, is that we were the worst struck. For example, like our business in Bench was looking wonderful because the summer months are the best time for tiger sighting, and this is the time when you earn 40% of the revenue, which actually helps you pass over the lean months of June, July, August, September, when the parks are shut, and that's how you end up paying salaries. But what has happened with us now is that we are stuck. We had to cancel because of COVID-19. We had to do refunds in some cases, and there's some people who've actually understood and allowed us to transfer the money for future reservations. That all is fine. That's done. That was money coming in. But now money is not coming in. So what do? We have salaries to pay. The government has given a notification by the MHA that salaries have to be paid. How do you deal with that? And I'm sure a lot of you are entrepreneurs who are either working or have a lot of staff alongside, and you want to take care of them. My advice to all of you personally is the route which I have taken is to have compassion for your team. Speak to them individually. Talk to them, tell them what your problems are. Have a look at your own finances as a company. Like being into business for 15 years, I have made a lot of mistakes. I have lost money. I generally depend on word of mouth and recently had started relying on OTAs where we were getting fleeced by heavy commission. So we decided as an industry to step down and put our foot down and say that, listen, this is all that we can give you. We do not have deep pockets. We also have to pay our staff, and that's our first concern. So in these unprecedented times, my advice is do not burn relationship. Talk to your staff, understand what their expenses are. Tell them this is something which I can pay you right now. Whatever will happen whenever business opens, we will decide then what if I can give you the rest of the salary. Yes or no, that will be decided then when business starts working, because we don't know right now when the market is going to reopen. Like Imran just said, we are in for 2 more weeks. To be honest, I don't see it opening before June end, because people are opening up, people are trying, they're not adhering to the quarantine policies, they're not maintaining social distancing. There are a lot of things that are happening all over. Migrant workers are going back to the States. So there are things that will be happening. And this is where your own personal finance also comes into play. Mind you, there are a couple of points which I will be touching on. You have your savings, you have your loans to pay, you have your creditors, you have your debtors. So my advice for each and every one would be, please have a look at what do you have in your savings. Have a look what your creditors have to be paid, or what your debtors have to be paid, and what money you have to come in. Request them to pay you. They may not be able to pay you right away. Have something in writing that will actually help you in understanding if they're going to pay you later. Because let me tell you something very clearly from I've been having a lot of conversation with legal team with Fox and Mandal, Khaitan and Company, and so on, to understand what the market scenario is. One thing which has been made very clear is that all your payment obligations remain. Nothing is void. Nothing is deferred. So for example, if you're an entrepreneur and you have a property on rent, you have a lease agreement in place, discuss with your lessor that if you can reduce the rent, or if you can waive it off, or if you can come to a mutual understanding. Also have a look at your documentation if force majeure has been mentioned in it or not. If you have, there's something very interesting which I just learned, is a doctrine of frustration. I'm not a legal expert, so I would like you to have a look, discuss with your legal advisors. If you have any rents or leases to be paid, try to cut down on your expenses, because again, we do not know how long this is going to go on. Second point is look at your expenses with your child. Like as we all know, we all have families, you all have fixed expenses. You know, as a company, Waxpol Hotels and Resorts has always been focusing on reduce, reuse, recycle. We believe on, you know, what our parents used to do when we were young. If you had an elder brother, you would wear their clothes. Then it would be passed on to the next set of the family. The sari would have been worn by all the sisters. It was not about, this is mine and not for me to share. So I would like you all to rethink that, let go of that thought process, and look at spending more on basic necessity and not on comfort and luxury. Till you see that you are getting your money coming in, till you know that your business is secure. Because to be honest, one thing which is very real is nothing is secure at the moment. We do not know when the market is going to take a turn. Another thing which I would like to talk about when I was talking about salaries is do not become so miserly. Do not lay off your staff. Talk to them. Try to keep them all retained. You know, it's not, I know that there may be a situation where you may not have money to pay. Then talk to them that if they can dip into their own fundings and sustain and still have a job after the lockdown reopens. Because see, the market scenario is going to be very different. I don't know if she's there or not, but there may be rental properties. There may be people who may be without a job. And then maybe no one, people might be thinking, oh my God, I've got a 50% salary cut. I'm going to go and join another company. You may not have another company to join. Because I'm very sure that new companies or old companies will not be looking at hiring new talent. It's an additional expenditure. Like we know that we all are sitting in Zoom today. We are sitting in the comfort of our home and having this conversation. It's a fact that this is what the business travel is going to look at. And hotels, something I'm into nature travel. And I run boutique properties in Sundarbans, Duas and Pench. I'm looking at a very a good future, hopefully, because, you know, we run boutique properties. We have natural social distancing. We anyway just have 21 rooms. So it's boutique over 9 acres of land. So people can come, and we've got these protocols in place now, which are going to ensure that there is sanitization and disinfection done with a chemical which is 80% alcohol, so that, you know, people feel safe. You cannot say that you're COVID free, but you can take precautions. That's something which people in our line can do. Another part when I was talking about finances and further was we all need to be proactive. Today we're discussing here, Shilpa is doing a fantastic job with VUCA. Somdatta has gone into diversification with her masks. Our company has also gone into diversification of hand sanitizers and disinfectants, which are WHO approved. But that's what we are doing. You have to see how you can keep your business running. You do not have to lose hope. In these unprecedented times, it's very easy to say that, oh my God, what will happen tomorrow? It's the end. No, it's not the end. It's time to reinvent yourself. It's time to see what more can you do with your finances available and with the resources that you have available with you in hand. I think this is a small, short thing, a lot of thought for you all to think over and strategize. Yeah, thank you so much.
So thanks, Akanksha. I think you've highlighted very, very important points. Mrin, I want to come to, when an employer, a lot of CEOs have taken massive pay cuts, right? Airline CEOs, retail giant CEOs are even forfeiting months of salary, right? Now, when it's a woman, when it's a single woman, when she's a mother, when she has a caregiving responsibility, how does this impact her? And also when it comes to employees who are not getting their bonuses, who are facing say a salary cut or something, how does one deal with this situation? Where do we draw our strength from?
Well, I think I'll answer this question in two parts, and I think what is really coming out very clearly from this whole situation that we are in is that we really need to focus on that cash reserve side of the balance sheet, right? And see, when the going is good, what normally happens is that whatever extra cash you have, you look at spending it in expanding and all of that. But just like you need to have an emergency cash in your personal life, you also need to have this cash reserve in your balance sheet and at hand in your business to look at tiding through times like this. Now, I know a lot of people are taking salary cuts, and I think even the employees are being reasonable about it, because at the end of the day, today we all just need to survive. It's a question of survival over like really saying that no, I want my full salary. Now, how does it the other point is also that whether it's a good time or a bad time, you always need to look at your vendor costs, right? Because you always need to see. So Akansha made a point of about how they were getting fleeced by, I think, some intermediary and stuff like that. So I think this is the time when you really need to relook at vendor costs. And as far as I know, that a lot of businesses are going back to vendors and renegotiating costs with vendors as well. So that's another thing that you need to do. um on the personal side, yes, you still need to maintain your family, but I think the thing that's going to take a hit is going to be two things. One, it could be if you have an immediate financial goal, like for example, if your child was to go to college next year, and if your child was going abroad and you had to pay the money, so how are you going to be affected? Do you have that money or not? And I think as Akansha talked about, reuse, reduce, recycle, I think we need to do that to our budget as well. You need to be very, very conscientious about, where you're spending. In any case, there doesn't seem to be too many opportunities to wear your clothes outside, right? So you need to be very conscious about where you're spending and how you're spending, especially if you have like a big financial goal which is coming up in the next 1 to 2 years, and you need to be supporting your business as well. And I know from experience that a lot of women actually support their business from their personal savings at times like this. So if you are in that situation, then, honestly, you have to be very frugal at a point time like this. I just want to take a minute because I could not complete what I was telling to Shilpa. So, Shilpa, I do think that the education sector is a really greenfield sector. And I do think that there is a bunch of angel investors. If you really want to expand further, you should look at the angel funding route more than the private equity route, because what happens with private equity is, of course, that they want to have a big say in the way you run your business, and you might have to compromise on some of your principles. But I think there are a bunch of angel investors, mainly family offices or mainly individual investors, who also have a similar sort of thinking. And to that extent, I think what you're doing has like a huge potential going forward, because there are many Indian families who are looking at a more at the non-traditional way of education right now. So look at some of the individual investors or family offices for that.
Thank you so
So
much.
I'm going to, yes, thank you, Mrin. Shilpa, Akanksha, Shom, I'm going to come back to you, as you know, for round two. But I'm privileged to have amongst us one of the busiest doctors, I think, at this point of time. I'm proud to also say that she's mine. She's my doctor as well, my gynecologist. And after years of going to gynecologists who judge single women, who, you know, would look at me and say, oh, why don't you get her married? Who would really make my mother feel like shit because, you know, I had PCOD and, you know, I had a lot of fertility issues. I still do. Indranidhi operated on me for the world. She's Dr. Indrani Lodh, one of India's top IVF specialists. And the reason for me to have her on this show is that Indranidhi also helps women. A lot of single women, as you know, today want to be single mothers, right? And they do it through the route of IVF, surrogacy, and of course, there's always adoption, but a lot of women want to become biological mothers to their children. Indranidhi herself is a gutsy, feisty single mother. And maybe on another show, Indranidhi, which will be about life and not work so much, I would like to share her own struggle, you know, and how she got custody of her son, who's now a young, bright MBBS doctor serving at the front lines. And Indranidhi, you know, yesterday we had a trial run for this session. And she mentioned something which I'm going to take off from Akanksha and Rin and all of you in general, where she, like a true woman, you know, and a mother, I think more than anything else, and nature is also mother. Mother is not just somebody who gives birth. It's that divine feminine that Shilpa so deliciously espoused in her chat. Um, she said, you know, when we make a profit as a business leader, we don't share it. So at this time, when all of us are cutting corners, when Indranidhi has a huge staff, she has 3 hospitals running in 3 different parts of Eastern India. Indranidhi will talk about them. But she said, you know, when I have to think that maybe Durga Puja bonuses have to be curtailed, what does it mean for my people? And I wanted to ask you, Indranidhi, I'm going to lead in with that question, as not just a business leader, but as an employer of a woman. You know, as a woman, you employ only women. You know, your clinic is run only by women, right? So how
Yes.
does it feel at this time? You know, none of the women have talked about how it feels, right? I mean, tell us about how that feels and the measures that you've taken. Because one of your hospitals, you were saying, with 400 beds is now non-operational.
Yeah. Thank you, Shrimoy. I think it's a complete honor as well as a pleasure to be on this show. Ideally, we should all be wearing a mask, but right now we are on Zoom and there's a lot of social distancing among us. I'm alone in this room, so I think I can do away with the mask. So I had a dream of having women's clinics. I'm a gynecologist, an IVF specialist, and I had this dream of having women's clinics. The first clinic came up in Kolkata, the second one came up in Durgapur, and we have a sister clinic in Barrackpur. So being at the helm of affairs, and I'm going to talk money matters tonight. So, you know, the lockdown, it's effectively started on 22nd of March. So on 1st April, when I was doing the salary, I was very happy to do it because, you know, the girls actually have worked till 23rd March afternoon. And after that, our clinic was completely shut. I mean, because it is a daycare center, so we had shut the clinic and we do not deal with emergencies. And there's no admissible patients either. So all the clinics are daycare centers. So we shut the clinic. And on 1st of April, when I was doing the salary, I was very happy. You know, not a single hitch crossed my mind because they have worked 23 days and then after that, 7 days they did not work. So it was okay. Now for the next salary, which was supposed to happen today, it's going to happen tomorrow when I go to the clinic. Believe me, you know, I, as an entrepreneur, as a woman, and I employ these girls, all of them are younger than me. I feel I'm their employer. I'm the person in lead. I'm the doctor. So I'm their mother also. I mean, I'm a motherly figure in all my clinics. So while doing the salary, and as soon as the lockdown started, I think Indigo was the first company to declare that they're going to have a salary cut. And now salary cut stories are everywhere. And let me tell you, that some of my girls, their husbands are working in different sectors, and they are so scared that they are messaging my manager that, Madam, I could not come to the clinic even a single day. So will I get my salary? My husband has already lost the job. They really don't have the guts to message me or ask me, but they are asking my manager. So you can imagine the panic in them. So I think it's very, very difficult, as an entrepreneur to go and say that your salary will be cut. And a salary cut will bring sadness to everyone. So my son, who's 23 now, and he's a doctor, and he's an intern. So he's going to hospital every day and has admission day, which means 24 hours duty on Friday. And so he is also a director of the company. So we had a meeting, and both of us, we decided that we are going to do the full salary on in May. And I usually give a month's salary to all my staff during Durga Puja, and that is the Durga Puja bonus. So I think I'm going to tell them, I'm going to talk to them empathetically, and I'm going to tell them that your salary I'm doing completely, and maybe I will definitely keep a maybe there, that in October maybe your puja bonus will go away if this thing continues. FUCA is something I learned today, and it's actually a VUCA situation. So this COVID is a perfect example of a VUCA situation, and it has just landed upon the entire world. I mean, it's not just it's landed upon me, or it's landed upon West Bengal or India or Asia. It's landed upon the entire world. So, as an entrepreneur, to keep the money matters going, so please have some empathy. And even if you have to cut the salary, I think that the ones who earn less than 10,000 should not have any cut. And only the ones which draw higher salaries should have some cut. And me as a doctor and an entrepreneur, when my clinic is closed, it's absolutely no work, no pay for me. So, that business part should come. I look at myself in 4 different parts. One part is a doctor, one part is an entrepreneur, and the other part is a mother. So you can imagine my dilemma. And these roles, they don't have a clear-cut definition between them. So all of them, there is an overlap between all these roles. So this was a dilemma which went on in my mind. And my son and me, we decided that in May, we are going to do this. In June, if the entire May is shut, as you said, that it has been announced, and which is pretty much expected in West Bengal at least. Then I think we'll take a call. I always believe in phrases. My life is, it's dictated by proverbs and phrases. So I always believe this, we'll cross the river when we get to it. So let's do the May thing now. For the June thing, we will cross the river when we get to June. And there are a lot of things which I wanted to say. Shall I say them now, or shall I say them in the next, next time when you get back to me?
Bring you back, Praniti. Yeah, I'm going to bring you back because we have to cross the river of time as well. And like I said to you ladies, that it's already been an hour that we've been on this Adda, and it really can go on and on and on. I hope to also take some questions. So I'm going to get back to Shomrin and then sort of, get you in on this. Shom, I would like you to show your masks firstly, because, I think you were wanting to do that. And I think, like I say, that all of you women have been able to convert adversity
Can you hear me?
Can you talk?
Yeah. I think it was convert.
One thing which has helped me
See? Hi, Shri, can you hear us?
I think she's, there's
I
a
think
problem
she's
with the
back.
internet. I think, Bryn, you should take it up, or Shom, you should
Yeah.
I think what she was talking
start
about,
showing your masks.
whole adversity into opportunity. Before I show the mask, I'm going to say this, right? I moved my businesses online, and I own about 7 brands by myself. So Asidus owns 7 brands. So we are in the health supplements line, we are in the lingerie line, we are in the beauty line. We have brands like Amplicel, Biotivia, Erotica, which is one of the top selling lingerie line. The reason I moved online was also because of an adversity that I saw in retail. And when the entire COVID situation was arising, one of the thoughts that crossed my mind that, hey, China has been responsible for driving the manufacturing for the rest of the world, while India has phenomenal capacity to do so. It's just that we are always very underestimated because we, in the Western world, they believe Indians are lazy. I think it's time to show that they're not. So not only are we battling the COVID situation better than anybody else in the world, I wanted to be the first entrepreneur to launch a line of COVID support, products, which is going to help our frontline workers like the ones of Indranidhi and her son. My parents are doctors as well. Their friends, my family and fraternity that I know from the medical professional side. So it started with an experiment in March where we started contract manufacturing India's first AF N95 NIOSH equivalent certified mask by Nelson. And they were so well received that I said, hey, it's now time to commercialize. So the idea of commercialization was not just to help people get access to masks, but also to help those who are putting on cloth masks or using masks that are not really feasible to support your fight against COVID, to give them access. So we are giving a lot of masks away as a part of the program, but we're also selling the masks so that it kind of balances it out. And
Yeah.
I'll be glad to tell you, we went live yesterday, and that's our mask. That's the NIOSH certified N95. It's called AeroFresh, and I'm going to show you guys the mask. So it's exactly what a medical professional would wear, and it's got all its certifications, including CE, ICMR, and we have done a lot of lab testing and trials before we launched this. We've sold yesterday, just online, close to 250 plus units between just Flipkart and our e-commerce store. And we're going live on Amazon tomorrow. And thanks to Shri, who talked about it online, and to my friends and community who I shared, we've got orders over like 7 lakh masks. And this is not just masks. We also have export quality PPE kits, because most of the PPE kits are coming from China and they are fake. They are not certified. It's uncanny and sad that Chinese factories get FDA certification so easily because they pay up for it, and India struggles to get it. So we got it made in an FDA certified production unit, and we're also doing PPE. And the goal is, how much can I reach out to our masses here to make this possible for them, and not to them, but also become a shining example of India being in the forefront of manufacturing great quality products. We have it in us, and a lot of people are going to move from China to India. So while safety is paramount, so is entrepreneurship, and that's where goes our N95 NIOSH certified masks. So Shri, thank you so much for allowing me to share. And to all my panelists, I plan to send you all a box so that nothing like having you guys as my brand ambassadors. So that's going to come your way. And over to you, Shri.
We'd love to. Bryn, converting adversity into opportunity is really that the cornerstone of a successful business entrepreneur. And as you always said that, your personal finances have to be well sorted, because that really is the key to keeping yourself afloat. Quickly, your thoughts and then closing comments from the rest of the panelists.
Yes, I absolutely agree. I always believe in a plan B. And I've done that in my life as well. And plan B on your business and plan B on your finances as well. I just have a thing to tell Dr. Indrani, because she said, and very nicely, and it felt nice to hear this, that she said that she plays 3 roles, that as a doctor, an entrepreneur, and a mother to her girls, right? So I think this is also the time where, as I said, the employees are being quite reasonable and they're willing to listen. But I think, this is also a time where we as entrepreneurs and as, leaders in our own organizations need to ensure that our workers have some basic things in place, like their life insurance and their medical insurance. And the government has a lot of schemes for them. So like there's a new scheme that came out from April 1 on medical, and then of course there's something on life insurance. So I think it's also a good time. I mean, all of these things don't cost too much, and the fact is that there's also a pension scheme that's there. So I think it's a good time for all of us to also ensure, and especially you, Dr. Indrani, because because of the workforce that you would be employing, or even Akansha for that matter, all of you, in fact, because of the except probably Shilpa, I would say for all of you, it is a good time for you to also give them that advice to say that get your contingency things in place and ensure that you have the right amount of medical and life cover through the government schemes.
Can I say a thing?
Yeah.
Just a comment to what Shom said. Again, another proverb: be Indian, buy Indian.
Yes.
And here I would like to say on record that it's better to boycott China. It's better to boycott China. I don't think they have very good intentions in their business plans.
Why can't we support our own medical requirements, Indranidhi? You've so beautifully.
No, I said be Indian, buy Indian. And the Indian jugaad is everywhere, and the Indian jugaad is the best.
Absolutely.
Okay? Be it money, be it reduce, reuse, recycle, whatever it is, the Indian jugaad is the best.
And Indian doctors rule the world, not just except for the fact that Indian entrepreneurs are at the helm of the top 50 companies.
Absolutely.
Indian doctors, like you go to any any UAE countries, you go to any Southeast Asia countries, including China, Beijing.
In England, 1/3 of the workforce in NHS is Indians.
Absolutely. So it's time that people look at India as a manufacturing hub.
They are.
I think Indian women, I'm going to be more specific, Indian women, we rule the world.
Rock.
Shilpa, we rock.
Just unleash your potential.
And Indranidhi, because you are a proverb person, here's one from me to all of you, and as a tribute to my brave single mother also once upon a time: the hand that rocks the cradle rules the world. So, yeah. So Shilpa, I'm going to switch off my video after this question. As you all know, I'm like a ghost. I'm coming and going. But you've really taken online learning to another level. From only the students of your school to having a seminar or a webinar, as it's now called, for 500 students. Do you think, and most of them men, because we are also trying to make our points and settle our scores with patriarchy, are men. So do you think that in the new world order post COVID-19, and I pray to God that that day comes soon, digital is our dream. Digital is the way to go.
Honestly, I think equality is the way to go, Shri. I think that's the thing that really excites me. There's something about a digital, when we give kids the digital power, they're so able to take it up because they are born digital. It's in their DNA. I don't know why we're denying that. I think we have to really run with it, give kids the power, let them show us. I mean, when we have a tech problem, we ask our kids, right? Like, how does my iPhone work? How does my computer work? We have firewalls at school and all the kids know how to jump over the firewall. If we have any problem, we just ask them. So I think we have to put the power back in the hands of the kids, let them lead their education, let them tell us what they need and want, and let us create support systems to really enable their growth, not some old world model that worked once a very long time ago where there were no computers and you had to memorize facts. Now you have all the world's information on the internet, and what you have to do is know what to do with that information, how to carve it out, how to make sense of it, how to create action out of it, right? So let's be like intelligent about this. Sure. So, I think everything you say about women entrepreneurs and the ability to change and the fire in this country, I moved from England to India because I believe in the creative power of India. And I think that education creating a new wave out of India, to me, it's perfect. It's perfect.
Shobha, I want to add something to what you said. You know, today my daughter, we wanted her to learn guitar from one of the world's best, and the guy was only available in UK. So she has been learning from the last 2 years guitar completely online. And she has done a few concerts. Today she's learning Kathak online. She's learning, you know, she's going and doing her research on her education online. And you are at the helm of this revolution. COVID just re-emphasizes the need for digitizing education, which you had envisioned way back. It's just that it's called, you know, forced behavior. And today everybody will do it. The good thing is you were the visionary, and now people are going to implement it. So kudos to you.
Thank you so much.
Kudos to you, Shilpa. A quick tip for our viewers watching. If you have any questions, please type it out. I will read it out, and if you are addressing it to one particular person, like somebody had a question, where can I buy the masks? So Mitch has shared the link with you all, so kindly purchase from that link. I go over to you, Akanksha.
Yeah.
Travel. We've all agreed that like F&B and like retail perhaps, it is really, or events for that matter, it has really been
I lost you.
Which has required
Shri, I can't hear you. Can you put the video off and try again, please?
Yeah, my video is off. Can you hear me now?
Yeah, it's much clearer. Yes, I think the bandwidth is better. Yeah.
Yeah. So the travel industry, like retail, like F&B, like hospitality, hard hit, but also requiring you to change with the time. Also, you see, Akanksha, a move back to unexplored destinations like Sundarban. You know, are people going to give up the luxury of, oh, I am UK returned and I went to Turkey and Istanbul and find their solitude and their sanctum sanctorum in your wildlife reserves, like
Okay, thank you for the question, Shri.
Or like you know, you are
Akanksha, I think you take it up.
I'll just take it up, yeah, because I'm losing the voice. Thank you, Shri. So basically, honestly, what is important now is that we have to follow the concept of low impact tourism, and we have to have post-COVID guidelines in place or SOPs made for each and every property. Yeah, I think that will be relevant in each and every industry as well. So what we're doing is at the boarding point, of course, we're going to try and minimize as much of the touch points as we can at the resort. For example, when the people will be boarding the bus to go to the Sundarbans, which we do a free pickup from Priya Cinema in Calcutta, we will be doing a temperature check. We will be asking our guests before, at the time of reservation, if they've had COVID, if they've been in an infected area or not. That's going to be a basic check, and we'll also be sharing with them that if they have temperature, we will not be able to take them, you know, for the next step, because we are going to a very rural location. I'm located in all rural locations. Healthcare facilities are not available there. So for me to have these systems in place, it's very important. And the game changer in all of this is going to be communication. We have to use sanitizers, I think masks, like, you know, general 3-ply mask or what Somdatta is making for our guests who are coming in. And once they reach the boat and so on, we again are going to have disinfections. Like Somdatta has ventured into a new field. We at Waxpol have also started manufacturing hand sanitizers and disinfectant sprays. So this is very easy to use. Basically, you spray it, you leave it on the surface for a minute, and then you just have to wipe it off. So it's actually an 80% alcohol base with other different chemicals mixed in it. So we are going to be using that after the dinner service, after the breakfast service and so on, sanitizing the beds, the linens, That's going to be the real challenge, you know. We are going to have signages placed in the room. We are going to have a debriefing to our guests. So it has to do a lot of pre-communication. So when the guest comes in, he knows, okay, this is what is going to happen. And this is something which we will have to keep on following for the next 2 months. So what we are doing is, as I mentioned earlier, we've made a guideline which we have submitted to the Ministry of Tourism for implementation for all the hotels and tour operators in India. And I think the best thing which we all do is do a nice namaste, go back to our traditional roots, have stop having, you know, buffet services. If you have a buffet service, the person has to be behind and he has to serve you. You should not be exchanging ladles, for example. And I'm sure that we can all restart. I think we all need a break. We can all make a conscious effort that if you're not well, not to travel. I'm sure that all people in the travel industry should have easier cancellation policies in place right now, because you do not know if somebody's sick, if he's not able to travel. You should say that fine, we can't refund, we will give you a credit for a year's time, or you know, some kind of strategy so that you can get the money really rolling. And that's what I would like to put in thing. Also, for all the people who are here, if you want any kind of advice on post-COVID or any kind of finance advice, I will be very happy to help you all out. You can email me on akanksha@waxpolhotels.com, and I can share whatever little experience I can, what I'm learning down the way myself. It's a evolution. It's evolution. You know, we are changing, but yeah, that's what I would like to say. And most importantly, keep your children safe. I know, like Shilpa said, like she's done online. That's fantastic. My kiddo, he's 6 years old. He already knows how to mute Zoom, go online. He's downloaded games on my laptop. He's downloaded games on my phone, and I don't know how on earth that's happened. But yeah, he's more tech savvy than I am. So let's.
So I think I have a word to say. Being the only doctor in the on the show, I think it's my moral responsibility to tell you that hand washing with soap for 20 seconds is the thing to do. Just using a sanitizer is a plain eye wash. Okay. So you wash your hands. You must wash your hands repeatedly with soap, any soap, Lifebuoy, Margo, anything. And for 20 seconds, nicely, all the fingers, clefts, you know the hand washing thing. If you want, we can have a session on that also. So that should be there.
Actually, we are recommending sanitizers where you don't have hand washing, for example, before boarding the car and so on. You know, for that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Shri, you're again on mute.
Yes, there you go. The final question to Indranidhi before I take a closing comment from Rin. Your industry has really, you are our heroes right now, along with so many, you know, even the people who are like, for instance, we have a 24-hour house help, and I keep saying we are so blessed that we are so privileged that we actually have somebody helping us right now at home. Doctors are our heroes. Your hospital staff who are coming every day helping women give birth, a lot of them single mothers, salute them. If there's one learning at this time, even if it has been guided by your rationale of mother, woman, doctor, entrepreneur, what would that be? If you can just sum it up for us, and then Rin, it'll be over to you for a closing comment before I come back and say goodbye to our wonderful panelists and our delightful audience.
Shri, this is a Money Matter webinar. So I had a few points to say. One is that, you know, if you're low on resources, whether it is your business finance or your personal finance, suppose you're just taken by surprise and you don't have much money left with you, then what all can you do? First thing I would say that if you have a credit card, then try using your credit card more often and for everything, and then just pay the minimum. In this way, you will just buy some time in which maybe the situation will just get better, and so will your financial situation. So that is one. The number two thing which I thought was, suppose you have to take a loan to tide over this, then instead of taking a personal loan which has very high interest, I would suggest that you can take a gold loan. We women, you know, we love our jewelry. And so if you have gold, you can take a gold loan that is at a much lower interest. Then the other thing is, if you have a PPF, then you can take a loan from PPF after 6 years. Or else, if the other thing was LIC policies. Yeah. So if you have LIC policies, then you can take a loan from LIC. And the other thing is, if you have EMIs running, you can request your bank only to take the interest and to waive off the principal amount for whatever months, 2 months, 3 months. I don't know the rules and regulations, but this is what my banker told me, that if you have issues with paying your EMIs, because I have 3 EMIs to pay every month. And so she said that you can ask to keep the principal repayment on hold and just continue with your interest payment. So these are the things, which can help you to tide over this COVID period, which at least is going to last for another 6 months, if not 1 year.
Taking on from Indranidhi, here are my suggestions from
Yes,
what I have experienced. Because I have a pretty large team and we do pay rentals in a commercial property. One of the things we're trying to do is we are trying to minimize that. We are allowing, people are already working from home, but given that we have a warehouse and everything functional, it's very important that you talk to your landlords and try and reach a common ground where you can actually minimize your cost on rent. And not only that, your infrastructure cost, your electricity bills, the bills that you pay for running your generators, the cost of, other essential items, because if you have an office running, there is tea, there is coffee, and well, it looks very small, but it's almost 30 to 45,000 of expense every month. So it's very important to minimize that. Also, your employees are going to save money on transport, on petrol, on those things. So when you're having a discussion on reduction of their salary, you can justify it. So try and see how much you can make them work from home. So the time they spend or the money that they spend on these kind of, on these kind of utilities can be substantially reduced. The other important thing is talking and communicating and over communicating. I think one of the things we are doing very well is leveraging Zoom and Ring Central and so on to kind of keep the employee motivation going on. This is a time when there is so much of uncertainty that the only thing that will last is kindness. So make yourself and that kindness available to you and the people around you. Finally, if you are in retail, try to move online. This is the time to migrate. And that's why Jio announced their partnership with Facebook and said, hey, the Kirana stores, people won't walk in as much as they did. There is worry of interaction. There is worry of social distancing. So try to get away with the stocks that you have idle, which is a lot of money, stuck money, liquidate that through online. So with that, I think, over to the remaining panelists.
Again, one word. This is a coinage I just came across. It's called Glocal.
Local.
Yes. So local is the new global.
Yes.
So instead of buying it from those very rich online people, your groceries, after the lockdown is over, kindly go back to your local Kirana stores who have been so helpful during this COVID situation.
Yeah.
Shrimoy?
Comment you, then I'll wrap it up. We've had an amazing session. Can you hear me now, Mrin?
Yes.
Yes. Now I can hear you. So I think I think we all really need to rethink our lives and our businesses, because certainly I think we are in for an extended period. Of course, all of us need to cut costs, and I think that's very that everybody knows. I would still just want to say one thing, that as women entrepreneurs, you do tend to mix finances, which is your business and personal. There may be situations where you might have to re-look at your goals. So, I know that this is not going to sound very nice to say, but there are cases where, if you had decided to send your child for undergrad abroad, you might have to now do it postgrad. And I would actually say that instead of taking loans, more loans at this point of time, we all have a lot of gold stashed away, which anyway we don't use. And I know the shops are closed right now, so you can't sell it right away, but I do not, I don't think that it's a good idea to take any more loans at this point in time, because it's just going to mess up your financial life further. And certainly, if you're going to withdraw from EPF, and if you're going to withdraw from these instruments, it really means that you're risking your long-term financial security. So I think, all of us need to focus more on financial security. We've got a chance right now because a lot of people are saving money on their lifestyle expenses. So I think it's a time to take a relook both at our personal and our business finances.
So another quote, a rupee saved is a rupee earned.
Yes.
So I think
open, sorry, sab aas paas ghum lena.
Aas-paas ghum lena. I think we've had a wonderful webinar, and I would like to thank all my panelists. I'm sorry my connection was extremely dodgy, but more than seeing me, it was important that you heard everybody, which I think we have achieved. Thank you to Akanksha. Thank you to Shilpa. Thank you to Shilpa also for letting us use her fancy Zoom connection, like I keep saying. Thank you to Indrani, Dr. Indrani Lodh, to our finance expert, who was a special guest, Rin Agarwal. Dr. Shomdatta Singh, more power to your new project, and may we all wear your masks, and may we realize the importance of personal safety. Also, a big thanks to Mitch Dudlani, who's who leads tech and social media for our community. Mitch, without you, as you know, I would not be able to operate. So behind the scenes, as always, but an extremely important member of the team. Thank you for bringing us all together. Our community is Status Single. You can find us on Facebook. Mitch has shared the link. If you want to get in touch to join the community, all the women that you see are actually community members. Shomdatta, I think I'm going to induct you now. It's about time. Yes. You're already one of us. And also, I think that the lessons, I think, are very important to us. And like I keep saying, as women, we already have it in us to reinvent, to reimagine, and to recreate.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Shri, for bringing all of us together.
Yes.
Yes. Thank you so much Shri, for the fantastic initiative. And
like Shilpa said,
I can see somebody writing, awesome session, great information, analysis.
Thank you all for watching. Thank you all for watching. I'm going to wish you good evening or good night. Be safe. Don't lose.
That is again, that is one of the things that I would like to emphasize, that do listen to all the guidelines that are coming across, lockdown, sanitization,
as you've seen
using
from
the mask. Everything, be safe. That is the biggest profit. So the biggest profit is being safe.
And
yes, and
Jnana Shakti,
personal safety, but also yes, personal safety, but also personal courage and empathy and kindness, which I think comes naturally.
Shrimoy, we can't hear you. Voice is breaking.
Our audience, we'll be back with another episode, and we'll be back with another episode of Status Single with Shri. Good night, everyone.
Good night. Good night.
Bye.
Bye. Namaste.
Namaste. Namaste.
Good night. Namaste. Bye.
Adab. Namaste.